Hi, so today I'm going to be interviewing Arcadia, and I'm really interested in just sort of delving into the history of your programming, some of your mentoring experiences, and just a lot of the community initiatives, interactions you've had over the years. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. Second, so I'm Kyle or Arcadia. I've been playing Medic since like UGC season 15 or 14, and I played a little bit of ESCA like 18 through 22, and then I came back in 2021 at the beginning to play RGL season 5. So I've been playing since then, and I play Advanced now.
Okay. And how did you start out playing TF2 on a casual level?
This is actually a good story because I saw the X-Tine documentary of I think it was 45 or something. It was one of the first internationals.
All right, guys.
But I saw like X-Tine's documentary for that, and like I'd played a little bit of TF2 and like a little bit of StarCraft. I was like, oh dude, I'm gonna play the shit out of this game, and I kind of did. I started playing competitive like right away and looked for a UGC team. It went okay, but I wasn't that good.
Okay. How did you end up getting into ESCA?
I just my friends got good, so like I played pretty consistently. I just played every season of UGC where I could. It wasn't like I really want to stress that I was like very bad. I was not good. Um, I was only like 14 or 15 at the time. I guess so were other people too, especially the guys I was playing with. But um, I just name drop like I played with like Tojo and Pokemon is Epic and the Bulldozer and Jordan Serial, those guys, and like eventually they got pretty good and they wanted to play ESCA, and I kind of followed, but I didn't really take it as seriously as them, to be honest.
Okay. And did you always play Medic, or is that something you ended up transitioning into at a certain point?
No, it's honestly mostly recent development. When I came back to the game, I really had so I used to play Soldier and Medic and some demo, but like mostly Soldier. I was definitely a Soldier main in the before times, like with a bit of Medic. But when I came back, I definitely had no choice. Though I was just like not good enough at Soldier to hang with anyone like remotely good. So I jumped back in on Medic and kind of stuck with it just because, like, kind of what Blake talked about in his interview. Like, I like Medic. I think it's pretty fun. I think it's one of my favorite classes for sure. But like, I wouldn't play it if I were just playing for fun. The same concept. I play it so that I can play it at the highest level possible.
Okay. Right. Okay. So what was it like when you transitioned from ESCA to RGO? Like, did you notice any sorts of real differences? Like, what was it like administratively back then and
I
now?
mean, it's like an entire world of difference in my eyes because, like, first of all, when I played ESCA, I was like barely a teenager. I was a kid. Like when I came to back to this game, I was like 21 and an adult, like with a full time job, like looking for a competitive outlet. So kind of in my eyes, like everything was different. The like me, who I was, and then like the game entirely was very different. So like the way that soldiers play, for example, like they're so much better now than they used to be. I'm approaching this from like purely sixes. I played a handful of Highlander seasons, but not enough to say anything about it. But like definitely sixes. Soldiers figured out how to high bomb. Demos got much. So like I played pre-demo nerf. If you kind of know about that, like
Like the ramp up thing, right?
he got like heavily nerfed in like 2016 or 15, I want to say, and like his sticky, yeah, it was with the damage ramp up, but also like the radius got reduced for stickies and like the damage got reduced. He got like completely destroyed in my eyes. I'm not sure how close to reality that is, but that's kind of my memory.
Hmm. Okay.
But yeah, it was a whole different world in to me.
Mm. Would you say a lot of the people felt different as well, or like did it kind of feel the same, like you were just coming back to what you already knew?
Yeah, definitely. Because like when I left, I'd say like the culture of gaming in general was way different than it used to be. Or yeah, culture of than it is now. Like especially in TF2 with RGL, I've kind of thought about this a lot. Like it's kind of like a change in the form of government. I kind of felt like once RGL was in charge, they like heavily policed speech. If that makes sense. Like I'm not a political guy or anything, but I just think it's interesting. Like RGL took like what you say very seriously, and like the community kind of says. I mean, people don't say slurs, people don't say bad words as much, you know.
Right.
So that was like really immediately noticeable to me, is that like people didn't say anything bad. Like people were much kinder, much more accepting. I think progress has generally been made socially.
That's good. And would you say a lot of that credit just sort of goes to RGL, yeah?
I think 50-50, because obviously, like in the end, it's the players. I think ultimately a lot of people have matured, and the general age of the community has risen. So I'm sure in part it's that, and in part the RGL stuff.
Right, okay. And how about the people that you met in the past? Did you end up like interacting with them differently at all? Like, do you see them get to like grow and change as people? If so, what was that like for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have like a lot of examples that I could go into, but suffice to say, I wouldn't say I was like the most. I wasn't like really hated or anything, but I wasn't like well liked or anything before. But once I came back, like I had a much better personality, I'd say, and like people who used to like openly not like me eventually became my friends and are like my friends now. So I would say that like that's the biggest thing about the players that I used to play with, like people who I maybe didn't have a strong relationship with before, like I do now for sure.
Right, like I thought you were a total noob before you came back. I'm just kidding. I didn't even meet you too recently.
No, it's all good. Yeah, one example I'll just give because he's like well known. Fat Swim Dude or Brody. He's like well known within the Sixers community and TFTV, I'd say. And like he and I used to kind of go at it because he was like quite a bit older than me, or he still is. He hasn't gotten any younger, but like he used to not like me a lot, and now we're great friends. So
Okay. And besides just like the whole like sort of policy on speech, what do you think some of the main differences between RGL and ESCA are?
it's a hard question to nail down. I think there's a lot of broad categories. So like one, you have the governance, the rules. So obviously there's like speech, but there's also the I guess the whitelist has changed along with like the balance of the game has changed slightly since I played last, and or I mean like 2016 TF2 is much different than 2021 TF2. That's kind of like how I came back. So I don't know. And then how the admins work, I think it's better now because you can actually get a hold of. I think people might say now that it sucks because like admins play usually and that you can't get a hold of them on match nights. But like in ESCA, it was much worse because you're like getting in contact with Try, like he's in charge of the whole league. You know, he might reply, he might help you, but he might be busy. I
Right.
think the institution of admins has been like not largely positive, but at least different. I don't know.
Would you say it's definitely like even if they don't always make the best decisions, they always try to do their best?
Oh yeah, of course. I think everyone. I never really attribute malice to anyone's actions. Like
Right.
even if you take some like, I mean, I don't want to name any specific instances recently, but there people can change, and people generally, I mean, are just trying to do things that are to the best of their own interests, and like sometimes they make mistakes, but I generally just don't see people, especially like with a game like this where there's no money involved. Like I don't think there's much malice.
Right. Okay. Uh, how do you feel? Like, do you think the community treats the RGL administration staff fairly, or do you think it's a thing where it's just like they get misinterpreted and mistreated a lot of the time for decisions?
I think this is a hot take. And this is also coming from someone who has zero admin experience. I've never been, I mean, not to say I've never been the admin of anything. Like, I've been a big guy at my company and whatnot, but like, I don't think it's unfair. Long story short, I don't think, like, when they get hate when they've done something bad, like, it's not that bad. I think it's warranted, but like ultimately, I think there's just give and take, and like there's always going to be some conflict, no matter how good they do. So
Right. Okay.
I think it's deserved, but they do a good job, and I think they do try really hard, and they do a good job. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Okay. That's definitely an interesting take to hear. I feel like it's usually where it's like people entirely blame the admins, where people are like don't hate on the admins. You know, it's like it feels like it's usually one of two extremes there.
Yeah, I definitely think like you're either an admin or you're a TFTV hater, and I'm kind of neither. Where like I can respect the like business side of RGL, and I can see how the league is run, and like people have to make decisions that are difficult and not everyone agrees with. So
Would you consider yourself a TF2 centrist?
I suppose so.
Are you gonna make a centrist league? Centrist
Yeah.
Discord?
TF2 political centrists. I don't even know what that would necessarily entail, but yeah.
That I honestly have no idea. It sounds terrifying though.
Yeah, I think in general, like if you ask me kind of how I feel about a lot of the drama that goes on, especially on TFTV, I'm an avid TFTV browser, but not an often poster. Just because I'm normal.
No way.
I I like normal things. I don't know. Try to see both sides of the situation.
And do you feel like TFT usually isn't that conducive towards that?
Oh yeah, everyone has like their own biases, and I think people are much quicker to type than they are to think. But
And
that's normal.
what do you think could be done about that as a community? Like, how could we sort of improve our social interactions?
I mean, that's a hard question. I don't think you're so like to answer what you're asking. I think like mindfulness is always good and respect, of course. But I don't think like the way that TFTV works now is like inherently bad, if that makes sense. Like obviously people get flamed and like sometimes people get like memed on and whatnot, but like it's easy to forget that it's just a forum on the internet, like with 100 people or so, and maybe a few more than that. But like, you know what I mean? People, I feel, get really worked up about things that happen on TFTV, but they really don't matter that much.
Okay. What would happen if we just pull all the TFTV users into like their own isolated place, like what Titanfall 2 does with cheaters? Is that the timeline we need to see here?
I don't think so, because like TFTV is such a wide. It's just hard to like how to say like collectively. Like TFTV is just not one entity. It's not really fair to kind of put them into one ball. I feel because there isn't like obviously the community can come to a consensus, but like TFTV is a lot of. I mean, it's a Reddit forum basically. Like anyone can post and anyone can have an opinion, and people can click plus and minus on whatever they feel like. So
Mm.
I don't think it's. I don't know.
Do you think TFTV kind of gets misrepresented in that sense then when people are like talking about it culturally?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think people love to say that TFTV is one entity and they love to like mob, but it's the same as Reddit. And or as any kind of forum type community, like pick 4chan, whatever, like doesn't really matter.
Okay. And is there anything you think RDL particularly needs to improve on?
Honestly, like if like just to stick with the theme of TFTV, I think the way that they deal with the forum is like pretty uh primitive, so to speak.
Oh, explain.
I mean, it's it feels like the admins like they love to stick kind of in their same group, and they talk amongst themselves a lot, and they deal with themselves a lot, and they see TFTV as like an outsiders somewhat, and like whenever people post on TFTV, instead of like going to an admin or making a ticket or something like that, they see it as like an offense to them somewhat, when really it's just like posting on Reddit. Like if they just got like more in tune with kind of how the culture of the site works and how to use and somewhat abuse it, like they could definitely like use TFTV to their advantage instead of it being like a foreign entity.
Do you think it's the sort of case where it's like they get a lot of mistrust precisely because of their mistrust for something like TFTV and the wider community in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street. I think both. There's actually a lot of like moving parts here, right? Because there's like to explain the structure of RGL, right? There's like Sigafu is at the peak. He is solely in charge of everything that happens. And then below him are like the top league admins, so like formerly Daff, formerly Macabus, and now like Reno and Virgil and Exa and some others. So like those guys kind of at the top all have their own motivations for doing certain things. Like how do I explain this eloquently is what I'm trying to figure out.
Can I make an attempt maybe?
Yeah, please.
So maybe it's like the community kind of like represents, like treats them collectively, right? Like, oh, you're just an RGL admin, and kind of de-individualizes them, and at the same time the RGL staff maybe they kind of like de-individualize the TFTV users and the wider community. Like, is that...
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's broadly true, is that people forget that like Sigafu is just a guy and he's got a family, and RGL is like his job and he does it to pay the bills, and that's kind of his thing. Like he does, yeah. So he's like pretty. I think people forget like this guy is like pretty risk averse as a guy. He's pretty stress avoidant just as a person. So I think like people are so taken aback that like RGL would not do something. It's like, well, I can't really sympathize.
Right. So
and yeah, vice versa. Like I think people are so fast too.
Right. So it's like nothing, like, yeah, like 50-50, kind of as you were saying earlier, like both of them need to improve on it. It's not a failing of either directly. It's like you can't play the blame game there, right? You just need to improve on it collectively.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. No, I think that's definitely a good message.
Yeah, I think like if you were to have like more open dialogues perhaps, or like either maybe like admins more willing to post on TFTV, more willing to share their thoughts, because like that's ultimately the issue, is like there's two separate groups of people who talk amongst themselves and they only like rarely communicate with each other. But if there was like a big link, if everyone talked to everyone, it would be good.
Right.
In my opinion.
And it's like RGL usually, like from what I've seen, it's just like they'll only post when it's like they're getting flamed in thread, like they need to justify or explain something, like with the payments one. It's like I don't feel like they usually proactively go out and seek dialogue, and then whenever they reactively do it, it's like they just get criticized and kind of scared off from actually approaching things in the future, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think like if you were to take a parallel, like the kind of way we do things now is like Valve. Valve is like RGL, where it's kind of a black box. There's not really any way for us to communicate with them, and they choose not to communicate with us. And that's kind of how RGL is. But like if it were more like Riot, how Riot does, like they do all sorts of talks. They do weekly updates to their games, like when with some. I mean, obviously it varies, but like those are the kind of steps that it takes to be successful these days, I'd say.
Do you think it's something like RGL would benefit from hiring a community manager then? Or is it really just something that admins need to do themselves?
Actually, in general, I think if RGL diverted funds away from prizes and towards like professional staff, they would do a better job. Because you can have community managers, you can have map makers, you can have like league admins who like try to have some kind of style or direction, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like instead of just like they randomly sub in one or two maps, like the league can have like a trajectory and like a plan, and that person can talk about it.
Right. And it's like usually they just use the excuse of, oh, it's needed to like maintain a sense of professionalism or keep people interested, but you gotta realize, right, like why do, if all I'm getting back is just like barely what I'm putting in, or just like something below that what I normally earn just by doing things day to day, at work, why would I play TF2 for the financial reward? But then it's like, if you
nobody.
Right, but if you really expand on just like the passionate aspects of it, right, like make it a really enjoyable experience, like we stick to it for the experience, and I think that's definitely something RGL like doesn't understand, right? Like they just try and seem too professional, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been a firm advocate for like the whole time. I mean, not albeit not very loud, but I think like especially getting paid mappers, that would be huge for the league. It's like imagine like a new map every season. I mean, I don't know about, like, I know other people disagree with this take, but I think it's fun to have new maps and get a new experience. You're not scrimming on the same, like, couple of maps every day.
Right. I definitely agree, yeah. And then it's like, I feel like you provide the admins, like, and the people who do care, like, much more of a support system, right? It's like everybody is kind of, like, invested more because there's that financial element, which means I think, like, all the admins and whatnot would be able to be, like, much more collaborative and protective of each other.
Yeah, because right now, like, I mean, I'm just gonna speak because I know that, like, the top admins all have, like, jobs or school, and this is just their hobby, and, like, instead of playing the game as the hobby, they moderate the game as a hobby, which, like, kind of sucks.
Right. Especially,
like, it would be much better to do it as a job.
And it's like, especially if it's as a hobby and your passion kind of burns away because of the way people interact with you, even if it's like some of your fault, it's just super easy to get burned out, right? And for the people who do care to just stop caring.
Exactly.
Okay.
I guess one thing I also wanted to touch on before we leave this subject is like...
Sure.
So it kind of ties into all three things we've talked about so far. And like also where I come into this whole picture is programming.
Right. I did actually want to ask you about your work.
Well, I was going to say that, like, I think the community at large, like, forgets that software is, like, a highly technical and difficult thing to produce. So, like, when RGL wants to make changes to their site, or, like, wants to add a new feature or something, like, somebody's got to program that, and either it's, like, Sigafu, who gets to do it for, like, really terrible pay, or it's, like, me, or AAD, who's, like, relatively unknown in the community, but does like a big chunk of the work for making RGL actually run.
I love Ad. He's such a nice dude.
Yeah, Ad is the best, without a doubt. But like, he doesn't get paid. Like, that's not fair. And software. So like, I recently got a job at like a major financial company as a software engineer. So like, I know how much my work is valued at in the market. And, like, doing it for free feels really, really awful, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, it's really selfish, obviously, but, like, when I can get paid 6 figures to work at a company to do this work, like, why would I get paid $0 to do it for RGL, besides, like, on the weekends when I have free time? But then when I'm doing it like that, it's, like, gotta compete with me actually playing the game for fun. You know what I mean?
Right. And I imagine it's like a lot of commitment as well, just like maintaining everything, pleasing the community. Like,
it's hundreds of hours, without a doubt. Yeah.
And that kind of ends up conflicting with your work at that point, right? So it's like you need to be able to make like something out of it for it to be sustainable, I'd imagine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the guys that do a lot of work in the software community for TF2, so you take like Icewind, who does demos.tf, like, he's a full-time software engineer, and then he does demos.tf as his passion project, but he can't play really, or like he doesn't play that much. And then you have other guys like 40bot who does trends.tf, which is kind of up and coming, and it's the same story with every software guy. They either play TF2 or they work on a TF2 software passion project, and there's kind of no in between. You like dedicate your time to one or the other.
Right. Okay. So Yeah, do you want to talk about some of your experiences just like programming with RGL, like how that sort of impacted you, your perspective on the league, or like really your life as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's been hugely valuable to me, so I'm exceptionally thankful that I was given the opportunity, even though my contribution has been pretty minimal up to this point. I've added a couple of admin pages and like generally haven't really done anything that substantial. Um
Hmm.
so like it sucks because I want to do more, but it's the same problem like I run into. I get home from my job, I just want to like either relax or play TF2.
Right. So it's like RGL should kind of like stop being what it's not, like, and just kind of focusing on what makes the community and the game unique, sort of.
Yeah, I think if well, not to like go back again, but like if you could pay someone to do the software development, you would have pugs and you would have, a better site and everything would be great. If you even pony up like I don't know, maybe like 40 to 50 grand a year for that guy, like I'm sure like as a whole, well, I don't know if it would be worth it necessarily, but like it's an idea. I don't know.
Right. It's just like the sorts of things we might need to keep in mind and try and do going forward to preserve the community and the game, given
Yeah.
Valve's lack of support.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Right,
then
right.
I don't know. In terms of like what I've gotten to experience, like a lot of it has been learning about who Sigafu is and like what he does and who the other admins are, like who the staff is, and getting a sense of like how each individual contributes to the operation. That sounds like pretty vague, but I think like to give an example of like Sigafu, for example, like got really excited about Face It, I felt, and like wanted to put a lot of time into that, like really tried to make it work. But like when it kind of became sevens and people sort of lost interest a bit, I mean, I haven't spoken to the guy so recently, but I feel like there was sort of a lost interest or like it kind of felt like a failure, if that makes sense.
Right, right.
So I don't know. It's easy to like not remember that this is a human with emotions, but he's got feelings and aspirations and whatnot, like we all do.
Okay. Do you still work for RGL in the present?
Yes, I'm technically still on staff, although
Okay.
I haven't really done anything recently. But yeah, I think I would. I'm still definitely open to contributing
Right.
more.
Okay. Do you want to walk me through some of your programming projects real quick? Like maybe the TF2 player map thing,
Yeah, so
soup.tf, stuff like
that was the first project. I think so. I was decently well into my software career, and I don't really get to do stats that much at my job, so I really wanted to kind of explore the statistical realm of TF2. Like, one, because I think it's really interesting, but two, because I think it's, like, really cool, really insightful, this map.
Okay. And what was
So,
it like? So that was sort of the initial motivation to do it.
yeah, exactly. And then, like, it came together pretty quickly as, like, the initial project, but this, how to say, so we want to improve it. So obviously, like, just to give a quick overview of what this is to people who haven't seen or like don't know about this. So I plotted all the points. This is what's known in computer science as a network graph, and each circle is a player, and what you can't see is like between each player is a line that dictates how many logs they've shared. So like if you pick 2 points, it doesn't really matter which, but they're like connected by a line, and that line has like a weight. So the more logs that you have with someone, like the stronger you're pulled together to them. So like initially you kind of just throw the points onto the graph, and then you kind of run like a physics type simulation to get the points to kind of scatter out and then get into these nice groups, if that makes sense. So like players who have played together a lot like stick together and push away players who they haven't played with.
Right. Okay.
So you can see like on the top sort of right area, the red and pink. Oh, so I should say the colors are like computer generated. So like I had like the program run kind of an analysis of like, it's basically statistic analysis of like who is like statistically significant in the same group, if that makes sense. Like to say in layman's terms, like if you're the same color as someone, it's like beyond chance, if that makes sense. So like if you're orange and you're like next to some people, like you've definitely played with them.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense? Like I'm not sure I'm doing a great job explaining this, but that's kind of what's going on.
Right, like you're just grouping people together based off just their shared things.
Yeah. And yeah, I want to say that like I did none of this by hand, basically. Like this is all computer generated. So like the colors, I had no knowledge of like RGL or anything. It's like solely based on the number of logs that people play together. Yeah, so go ahead.
This is just for 6s?
This is just for 6s right now, but I want to expand the project to go have both game modes, have all logs, and be like interactive so that you can search and like filter different time periods and have it be like a really useful tool so that like anyone can kind of go onto the tool and find out something that they want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Because like right now, this sort of graph like takes me a fair amount of work to just produce one of. So if I could make something that kind of produces infinite, that would be pretty cool to me.
TF2 infinite.
That's kind of my goal right now, and I have a couple other people helping me with this. But we're not that far into the project.
Do you accept donations?
I would say no, not for this. No, because it's just for fun.
You want to accept a stout Shaco?
I mean, I would accept TF2 hats if you've liked what I've done so far, but I wouldn't like say, oh, please give me hats in hopes I make a future one, because I don't want to promise that, because it might not happen potentially, but I want to make it happen.
I'll send you one, don't worry.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I was going to say the big mass at the top right, the pink and purple, or whatever, those are like EU players. Then on the left side, you have NA. So I think I don't know EU that much, but I think people towards the top of the like red are the better players. So like I start to see some people I know like Yeehaw and Jevin and whoever else, and like the purple players are like low mid. And then NA is on the left with top invite at the top of blue, like main or so, like main IM in orange, and then like open in green. And then the other various regions are, let me see, not exactly sure which one's which. Someone did a nice thing on the thread. Yeah, so the gray ones are Oz Fortress on the bottom right. Then the kind of teal ones, the green-blue is, Asia Fortress. Then the blue ones at the bottom are like South America. And then at the very top, the gray ones are South America.
I see. And has there been, like, was there much community interest in this? If so, was there any, like, particular, like, region or group of people that was most interested in it? Like, maybe any leagues or anything?
I wouldn't say that. Nobody knew I was doing this before I just did it.
Right, like on the TFTV thing?
Yeah, I just kind of, like, okay, I had one problem in that, like, I couldn't really figure out how to get the names of the players, because, like, how I do it right now is, I don't know, not to get, like, too technical, but I had trouble solving the issue of, like, how to put the correct alias on each point, you know, because some people alias constantly and, like, never have a real alias, so, without getting too much into that, I've already solved that for the next version, but in this one, it was quite a challenge in the time frame.
Okay. But like, did you have, after you made the post, did many people like reach out to you about it all?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you did, and then
right?
like some other people did too, because they wanted to know where they were and uh, what things meant. So I tried to explain in the thread, but I didn't do a particularly good job, and I had to like send a lot of people their names and locations.
Maybe you should hire a PR manager.
Yeah, truly.
Okay. How about leaks though? Did any of them display interest?
No, no one's reached out to me about this, but I think I don't know. It's like a cool passion project. It's like a cool thing. It's
Right.
not really that useful. It's like I have some more useful ideas in the works, but this is definitely not one of them.
All I'm saying is this is a step towards 1984 for the leagues. Like they're missing out here if they're not jumping on this opportunity. They can
I
see
mean,
they can detect friend groups just like that.
that's actually true. I think that would be like actually an interesting use of this, but uh, I don't think they'll ever do anything like that.
Darn, they're really lacking.
But yeah, I think if you were to, I think you could do Smurf detection like this. I think that would be a good way to figure it out.
Honestly,
Stuff like
yeah.
that.
Okay. So when do you think you'd be like tentatively having a second version come out?
Uh, gosh, I think like within the next 12 months, we'd like to make something public on my site. So
Okay.
I wouldn't say expect something, but like it'll be on TFTV if we make it for
When it's
sure.
when it's done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, ultimately, like, it's not, as I said, it's not a useful thing. So, like, I don't feel much pressure to do it, but I, like, do it for fun, you know? So, like, yeah, I do it when I can.
Right. Okay. That's definitely fair. Do you want to talk about Medic for a bit, your experiences with that, and then we can probably get around to mentoring afterwards, yeah?
Yeah, that sounds great. Um,
Okay. I'm gonna go back to the in-game footage.
sounds good. Where should we start? I don't know.
Um, have you ever do you find yourself interacting much with other medic mains, or like when you first started out or in the present day?
Yes, this is a good topic because obviously I watched the Blake interview, so I heard what he said about he doesn't really interact with that many other people, but I understand because Highlander is a bit we're kind of like the opposite sides of the same coin. He's like a majority Highlander guy with some sixes, and I'm like a majority sixes guy with some Highlander. And
Right.
obviously, I mean, not to. I think like if you were to look at his, obviously he's like a multi-invite winner in Highlander, and I'm just like a mid-advanced player on Medic. But uh, I think in general in sixes, there's like you never get on a team with another medic unless they're off-classing, and I think that really sucks because like a lot of medics can relate to each other and like should be friends, you know, but never get to. So I made a Discord to kind of address that issue. There's like 100 people in it now, and people talk about Medic sometimes, but mostly just meme and like a place to hang out.
And would that be the medic union?
Yes, so the RGL Union of Medics. This is totally like a public type of Discord. Like I'm happy if people were to just randomly join who like play competitive Medic. It's hard to just like spread the word, you know, because I don't really just want to post on TFTV because then we'll just get like spammed by the children. I don't want to say their names, but you probably know which ones I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just didn't really want to get involved with that, like by posting on the forums, and I've just kind of sent it to people, and they sent it to other people.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
more like a grassroots community sort of thing.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And what do you say? It's been pretty good so far.
I mean, it's fine. It hasn't really. We haven't really done anything like major, but it's like a fun Discord for sure. Because like, it's nice that people will just like. Well, for example, like if you go on TFTV and you post in like frag clips or stream highlights or something, and it's like a medic clip, people just don't really like it. Like, doesn't get a lot of positive feedback in the same way. Like even if you're May, for example, like even if you're Froyo's medic, you like post a clip, I guarantee you it's not going to get that many plus votes. Like, yeah. Anyway, so it's fun to like post stuff in there and look at other people's medic plays. So yeah, that's kind of how I think it's like fun, but nothing deeper than that, I guess.
Right. What do you say even like if you end up interacting with like medics yourself? Like it definitely seems like there is like a sense of medic culture for sixes, like player culture.
Yeah, I'd say sixes is much more tight than Highlander, at least from what I can gather from listening to Blake and like my own experience with some of the other medics. Because I know there's a lot of the top medics, they're just friends with their friend group, like in Invite, for example. A lot of those guys have been playing with the same group for a long time, so like that's a little bit separate, and they're all kind of friends with each other. But like I have medic friends, for example, and I know like other medics have medic friends from the Discord, so it's like kind of fun to meet people like that and be able to talk about the class.
Right.
I guess like what Blake also said about, you know, like in Highlander you definitely do a lot of playing around your team, but in sixes like it's more give and take. It's more equal, I would say, if that makes sense. Like the medic has a personality and like game style as well, and like you have to kind of tailor your strategy around that, I feel. And that's definitely worth talking about in terms of sixes, because I think as far as the classes go, like medics can have the most diverse skill sets, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like much more of a sense of individualism.
Yeah, like I can give you an example.
Sure.
So, like I'm a player with like good game sense and like not so fantastic like aim and like decent movement. But yeah, I'm just gonna cherry pick like Roster Ronald is kind of the opposite of me, where he's like, I mean, obviously I wouldn't say he's like bad game sense or anything like that, but he's not like a cerebral player, I wouldn't say, but he's got like really exceptional bows, like really exceptional movement and awareness, stuff like that. So like you kind of have to tailor your plans to those strengths and weaknesses in the same ways that like you would have to tailor your game plan to the strengths and weaknesses of like a demo or a soldier or something like that, like your team. So
Right. Okay. Do you have any? Do you think there's any like big contrasts like between like or pioneers for the medic class and sixes that you could think of?
oh, definitely. I mean, without going into the redacted,
Oh no.
I mean, obviously, like Shade and Nursey have had like an unimaginable effect on like what the medic class can be at the top level. But even like you pick any of the kind of top guys now, you have like Lol guy who's just really exceptional all around. You have like Zilly whose demo reviews are like some of the most watched probably out of anyone's on YouTube, and like really fantastically smart, really strong DMs. Like he's definitely had an influence on, I mean, definitely my gameplay, if not the whole community. I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of, but even a guy like Mr. Slin, who like was never, you know, frankly speaking, probably a bit worse than I am now, at his peak, but still like made good educational content, like had a profound effect on the community, I would bet.
Right. Do you think there's just like a lot more of those sorts of like guides, reviews, tutorials that are like broadly applicable for sixes? Like, do you think there's more mentoring resources in a sense?
I don't think there's that many resources for either game mode, but I don't know that much about Highlander. That to be fair, I think. Honestly speaking, I think the medic is very accessible because you just don't need to have like a mechanical there isn't a really high mechanical barrier for entry like the other classes, because like, I'm decent at the movement games and like I have okay aim, but you wouldn't see me on scout outside of like IM or main right now, like anything like that. So I think like medic benefits from that, but there isn't like kind of more guides for any one class, I feel, if that makes sense.
Right.
Even like like game mode agnostic, I don't feel like there are that many guides for either game mode.
What about the Banny guides?
I don't think Banny is I mean, I guess disrespect intended. I don't think Banny is like an exceptional mentor.
Damn.
But because I mean he's played at the top level for like 10 years, he has no idea. Like what? I mean, he can watch like an IM demo and understand what's going on, but he hasn't played like a low level game in a long time. And he gets like kind of just has the benefit of being like the best of the best. But it's kind of like how it's like the best coaches in basketball or like football or any sport, like pick any sport or game or anything. Like the best coaches are not the best players, you know what I mean? It's no fault of Banny's. Like he's just kind of a natural savant and like sees the game within the game, very naturally. Like he can explain it to you, but that doesn't mean he's gonna be the best teacher, even if he's the best guy. Like don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a bad teacher or like a bad mentor, but I wouldn't say he's like the creme de la creme to get.
Right. Okay. What do you say? Like, that's just part of your reasoning for like having such an interest in mentoring?
I think partially, yeah, because I've never been like an exceptional player, but I think definitely my skills tailor more towards coaching. I'm just more of a thinking type player, and I like the idea of like teaching people in general. I really have had some good mentors, so I feel like I owe it to the community to like pay it back as well.
Right. Okay.
And it's just very like wholesome. It's really enjoyable to mentor people and see people get better. So that's a big thing too.
Right. Do you want to talk about like your mentoring experiences for a bit? Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. I've been running this mentoring Discord for a few months now, maybe close to a year. And that's kind of entirely been a creation of mine and Q. Q is like a advanced scout who's played with me now a couple seasons. So it's kind of like our idea that, it's like we just have an affinity to teaching people how to play the game, and we like to provide that for people. So I really enjoy watching demos with people. All right. Hello, everyone.
Okay. And is that project soup.tf?
Yeah, so soup.tf is a website, and our Discord's linked there. Like, it's free to join. Anyone can join. You can ask for mentoring at any level, like newcomer to invite. I'm sure there is someone in our server who can help you. It's it's a good community, and like it's just been a fantastic thing. I think I've really enjoyed doing it in every aspect.
Okay. And how long have you been doing it for?
Like coaching, I started in season 6. I did I got like 9th in main in season 5 or something, and let me verify this. Just so I know that I'm not lying about the seasons. Yeah, season 5 got 9th, and started coaching newbie mixed team drive in season 6. And that was how it all began, basically.
Okay. And alright, how has the community reception been to it so far?
People have been very positive. I think especially like, so obviously if you're watching this as like an invite or an advanced player and you're like, what the Kyle like does this, and it's like, yeah, obviously I wouldn't like advertise it to you because you're like equally as good as me. I'm not going to teach you, you know, I'm not going to like teach an advanced player anything really. I mean, I probably could, but you know, whatever. They don't care. So yeah, it's like, I think if you look at the impact that I've had on the lower divisions of the game, it's like pretty astounding. A lot of people have, I think, gotten a lot of value out of what I have to say and like what Q has to say as well.
All right. And you would say most people like genuinely act with goodwill kind of around it? Like, no,
Oh, yeah,
people don't
yeah.
go out of their way to be problematic?
No, people are. I've never. There's not even been a single bad instance of anything. Like, we now have. Gosh, let me look. Oh, so you just joined. I'll have to give you a roll. I mean, we have
it's
like,
not the real me. Fake. As you're saying.
we have like 10 coaches now. Maybe like, actually no, closer to like 15 coaches now. And they all do like demo reviews independently of me. So like the whole thing just kind of runs, and people, you know, even if you don't like me or you like don't like my teaching style, you can find someone who you do like, you know. So like as much as I'm talking about myself, like there's other people who do this as well, and yeah. It's been entirely positive in my eyes, like a very, very good thing.
Right. No, I'd definitely say that's a good legacy to have. Really refreshing to hear that people like actually care.
Mm-hmm.
Are you into like pickup games at all? Do you have experiences with those that you would want to talk about?
I mean, I play pugs, and I used to host actually at the time it was the largest pug group, but I don't want to get into that too much. I've played pugs, but I wouldn't say I'm like a big pug guy.
Right.
I kind of know what's up, but I wouldn't. I have no insight to add, to be honest, to that conversation. Just not really my area of expertise. I like to watch demos. You know, that's kind of my forte.
Would you ever think about branching that out into like other games, like a professional sort of employment in the future?
Hard to say. Probably not into other games. Because I really just like TF2. I play other games too, like Rocket League and Dota, and I was like high rank in those as well. But you know, I wouldn't want to do anything other than TF2, to be honest. And I don't think I could see myself starting like a media company or anything like that.
Gile Media.
Yeah, that would be a bit of a stretch. I'm just like, would it surprise you to believe that I'm just not the most social guy? Not like
It would.
No, I'm a pretty quiet guy. In my normal life, I just type on the computer.
But you're a gamer at night, huh?
Indeed.
How does it feel to live that double identity?
It's actually kind of funny because like nobody at my work really knows anything about like me or what I do. So it's kind of interesting, but like at the same time, like have you seen Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley, no.
Okay. There's just like kind of an archetype character of like stereotypical like pompous programmer. Like that's kind of how people imagine me in my office, I would say. Like even though that's not really reflective of who I am, I'm just like kind of a quiet guy. Like I clearly I don't know how to like say it realistically, but I'm just kind of the stereotypical nerd programmer in like my office life. But yeah, then I go home and I coach people and play video games.
Have you thought about offering to mentor the people at the office at all? Build up some reputation points, you know?
No. I mean, definitely not in TF2.
Yeah, you'll want to up your game? Maybe make like an office TF2 team?
Oh my god, that would be funny, but definitely not possible.
Why is that?
I mean,
why is it not possible?
Well, I mean, I live in Montana right now, so a lot of these people are simpler folk, I'll say. Not
gamers.
Yeah, they touch grass a little too much, I would say.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Would you say you're a centrist on that spectrum as well? You think it's bad to touch too much grass, but bad to also like not
Oh
touch
yeah,
enough grass? I see.
yeah. I also used to. I mean, I ran cross country and track in college, so like I would say that I was like a relatively elite athlete in real life, and you definitely need to have balance no matter what you're doing. It's like, yeah, too much of anything is like you're always gonna hit a wall unless you're just like superhuman. Really, I don't
Right.
know, but that's just not me.
In like 20 years, could you see yourself as being like a super centrist grilling dad?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'll have kids, but yeah, I definitely I love to grill. That's for
Oh
sure.
no!
I love to cook in general.
You are the ultimate centrist. Holy shit.
I don't really like. I'm just not like a political guy in general in terms of like having a stance on things. I just
Right.
kind of like to think about things, and I don't know.
Would you consider yourself a philosopher?
uh, I mean, not like personally, but I think the reality is probably yeah. I'm definitely I like to think in my spare time for sure. I like to think about the video game and think about how the world is somewhat. Yeah. But I wouldn't like call myself a philosopher or anything like that.
What would you say the perfect ratio is? I'm not going to give you any further context. I just need the answer. What's the best ratio?
Uh 4 to 20 or 6 to 9. I don't know.
Alright, that's pretty fair. I see.
One of
Okay.
those two for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 4 to 20 is a pretty respectable one. You see a pretty big power curve increase from like the early game to the late game.
Certainly. Certainly.
Very professional. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, did you have anything else you want to talk about on like the mentoring topic?
Um yeah, I mean I guess I definitely want to continue to expand like how we do things. I would love to get like larger how to say. So like something that I think in general is that like in so like if you take real sports for example, right? Like the the professional basketball players are like well aware of what value they provide to their respective community. Like they play basketball really good so that people watch and then they sell ads and then they get paid millions of dollars, you know? But I feel like the top level TF2 community hasn't figured out the answer to what their value is, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
So
for
like
sure.
there's a lot of people who play and they never do anything other than play, and that ultimately like I don't know how to say, like it kind of detracts from the general value of the community because they're like taking more than they're giving, especially because like Invite gets a prize pool versus like the other divs. I mean, obviously that's like to prevent sandbagging and whatnot, but like the people who play Invite, like they have no real incentive to do anything to provide value to the community, if that makes sense. So I
Right.
think like I would love just to kind of tie everything together. Like I would love to see some way or like incentive from RGL to get community members to like create videos like in conjunction with RGL, create like guides or like do mentoring, something like that provides value back to the community. Cuz I think there are plenty of people who would do it if there was like even a small incentive to do so, if that makes sense.
Right.
Cuz if I feel like I work a pretty easy job. As far as jobs go, it's, you know, programming is not very difficult. I can imagine being like a teacher or something, like not getting paid a lot. You come home, you play a little TF2, you like have a drink and then you go to bed or something like that. Like I can understand that sort of mentality of like, oh, I don't want to do anything that provides value for the community cuz like it's really difficult and I don't get anything out of it. So like I would love to see kind of a way to incentivize people to contribute, if that makes sense.
Right. Do you think that like since like that lack of value and sort of the effect that has in people not really contributing to the community, do you think that's what results in like such problematic behaviors from time to time and people just like causing issues for the sake of it?
Honestly, no. I think a lot of that stems from just, I mean, some of it is like unfortunate, where it's just like that. I mean, with recent stuff, for example, like you kind of have, I feel like there's two broad categories of people who get kind of permanently banned for doing bad things, and you have like real life slash like, I don't know how to say. You have like social interactors who like interact with people inappropriately socially, and then you have like bad actors who cheat and like do things to win the game unfairly. I think the latter, the cheating, less of an issue in our community because there isn't money behind it. And vice versa, like because the community is small, I think there's probably just a higher proportion of those sort of social issues. Maybe also having to do with the culture of TF2 as a video game with like custom servers and like, I don't know if that kind of makes sense, the tangent I'm drawing, but like
It's hard to be held accountable, kind of.
no, I mean, people make mistakes, I think is ultimately the reality, and like people will get caught up in doing things that are irrational. Maybe they feel lustful behavior for someone that is not of age. Like, you know, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of like there's nothing by and large that the TF2 community can do to stop, you know, that sort of thing. Right. If that makes sense. Like there's
for sure.
It's just not really like an effect that we as a community can have, I feel. Maybe that's like just an opinion and other people think, oh, maybe we can, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I see it.
Right. I feel like it's definitely something possible, but I feel like it's like usually negativity in that sense is met with more negativity that just sort of pushes them further, rather than it being like this sort of positivity that's proactive and that actually leads to like long-term change there.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so like I would love to see someone who's kind of the equivalent skill that I am to programming, like someone that's good at psychology or like really has a good understanding of like the human psyche. I would love to see some like more professional kind of ideas about how to deal with these incidents.
You just gave me a really funny idea. RGL psychologist. RGL just hires an official psychologist.
I mean,
yo, LFT psychologist. I'm studying psychology.
I don't think it would be so crazy to like get a psychology graduate to like consult like very briefly.
Yeah, no, actually, like, that sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like, I mean, these are like broad social issues. These aren't issues with like anyone unique to TF2.
Right.
You know?
I know. I think it's definitely something where it kind of like goes back to the idea of instead of just funneling money towards like a totally insignificant prize pool, it's like they could actually like add to a sense of professionalism and meaning to the community and to the game by just like attempting to solve their social issues and understand the community. Like it is kind of silly to think about, but just like working with like people who do psychology or something like that could really help with it when it just comes to like understand the community and actually doing things rather than just funneling it towards prizes. Yeah,
exactly.
Like that would really build a sense of professionalism.
Exactly. I think if there was one thing that someone listening could take away from this, besides like what I do, it's like the idea that RGL could potentially put money towards something that isn't prize pools.
Right. Can you explain to me like what the rationale is for like the recent logs.tf incident? I was actually recording for one of my other videos and I went to check logs and Yeah,
I mean, I can't speak too much to like what the individuals behind it were thinking, but I can speak towards the software involved, definitely.
Oh yeah?
that like as a community, as a software community, so like I'll be honest that we like there is a community of developers that's like I wouldn't say secretive, but there's a community out there. We communicate a lot, and like there's a couple of developers who are separate from that kind of main group, like for one reason or another. And I don't want to like name any names or go into too many specifics because that's just like I don't want to talk about them too much.
Right, you don't want to bring attention to them.
Yeah, anyway, suffice to say, like, the community at large generally knew because, well, Zoob is the guy who runs logs.tf. He is the sole proprietor. Logs.tf is not open source. It's not publicly available in any form. So he is, like, the sole god of logs. And he has no interaction with us whatsoever. So the rest of us as a community were generally aware that this was like a really easy thing to do, as like a really annoying attack metric because like if I go on my logs.tf profile, it's just gonna pull up logs that like are in my name or whatever. But like you could use that because you can abuse that, right? Like you can put people in random logs, you can upload whatever you want, and there's like basically no not to get like too deep into the computer science at all, but like there's no checking to see if the log is like legit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas like there definitely we've thought of a couple ways that you could do it, and yeah, I think it's very very doable, but the like Zoob has not been interested in any interaction with the rest of us developers as a community, and I mean what happened, and we've kind of figured it could happen anytime, and we've known for maybe a year now. So hopefully that's like an interesting insight, but
yeah, for sure. Do you have any insight as well into just sort of like cheating programs, like what the rationale is for those, like for the developers?
I actually have no clue, to be honest. If someday you could get Ad on here, and I mean, even if you did get him on here, there's no way he would tell you his true thoughts. But like, I would love to hear more about that because that community is like intentionally secretive and intentionally like outsider weary because it's like how to say it's like mostly cheaters and ex-cheaters like going against each other, and I don't really know where the incentives lie, to be honest, because I don't know anyone who's programmed cheats. I don't really know how cheats work myself besides like the bare basics software wise, and I definitely don't know much about the like software behind combating it. But I can say I think the community sentiment, like I've read a lot of threads where the like admin team is very secretive and they like say they have a lot of tools to like catch cheating, but I think that's a lie. Like I can tell that seems to be false. If it was easy to catch cheaters, like it wouldn't be as much of an issue as it is.
Okay. That's definitely fair, yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, well, I don't want to like shine a light too much on cheating, but there's like some more subtle things that are like exploits of the TF2 engine more so. So I'll just give one example that's like pretty well known that like nobody will have any exception to, and that's like backtracing. So have you heard of that?
No.
It's basically like when you're moving in TF2, there's like a couple different valid locations that you can shoot where the server still says like, okay, that's a hit. And you can kind of do it works on like both sides as far as I understand. I could be wrong, so if like someone's watching this with like a really good understanding, is like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Yes, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Either like it can work offensively. Like you can shoot in like places that are very guaranteed to be a hit, basically. Like, and vice versa. Like you can have your player model move in specific ways so that it doesn't get hit as easily.
Matrix Spy.
Somewhat, yeah. So that's kind of like roughly how it works, but like imagine kind of the possibilities that are involved with something more subtle. Like maybe like because like the margins at the invite level are really, really small. So like imagine 1 in 10 shots, like no regs on you only. Like not gonna be something that the logs notice, but it's probably something that's gonna affect the outcome of the game, you know? Like if 1 in 10 shots, if one of those is 100 damage meat shot and it no regs because you were cheating, like that's a huge benefit that like it would be really difficult to notice. You know, those are the kind of possibilities that exist.
Okay. Do you have any insight, like, or any thoughts on like the whole machine learning thing? Like, I saw a lot of videos just talking about like how that was being used for cheating a while ago.
Yeah, I mean it's beyond interesting. It's like there's so much unexplored territory that it's a bit even, I would say, scary to me, because I think if somebody put enough time and resources and computing power into kind of any aspect of the video game, that kind of I don't know how to say this perfectly, but like if you put a lot of resources into machine learning, like how to play the game, like you could essentially create like really, really strong AIs that are better than humans, like not just at the aim portion of the game. Like even if you tune their aim to be like about equivalent to humans, like they could be intellectually superior players. So like I think it's exceptionally interesting, but also a bit terrifying, because like computers could definitely be better at TF2 than humans.
Okay.
So I mean, not to like, I don't know, I feel like that was kind of an incomplete answer, but to kind of give the rough overview of like what machine learning is and like what it could provide, just to like a layman audience, is like machine learning could be used to kind of have an artificial intelligence actually be able to like play and interact with the game. So you could have kind of I don't want to say an algorithm, but it's like a machine learning algorithm that can figure out things that like humans couldn't ever possibly see, which would be really interesting, like gameplay wise, statistically. Like you could figure out like sort of you could optimize your like plays much more by the numbers with machine learning if you figured out how to use it within TF2, because you could figure out like the high and low percentage plays, like in regards to which doors you push through and like which sacks you do.
You could be the NASA soldier, have the perfect rocket jumps.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
Definitely, without a doubt, you could figure.
That's scary.
I'm sure you could find with like a neural net sort of exploration, I'm sure you could find better rocket jumps than the ones that we already know about. I'm sure there are ones that have not been discovered yet that exist on the current maps.
Okay. Do you have any, so coming from like a development or like programmer standpoint, do you have any insight as to like why Valve is treating TF2 the way they are?
Actually, no. It really doesn't make much sense to me. I have said for a long time that like if I could work at Valve, I would, and I would genuinely really try my best to try to write the course. But I really think what Valve does is, I mean, like realistically speaking, it's the dream child of Gabe Newell and his close associates, and it's the same as RGL somewhat. It's like they can choose to run the business however they feel like, and right now they don't care about TF2 and they don't want to do updates for it and they just don't want to spend time on the game. I think they feel pretty similarly about CS:GO as well. I think they put in the bare minimum or like a decent level of effort for Dota, and a lot of their time goes into the other games. And they're also a relatively small company, so
Right.
compared to the size of business they do,
Right. How about VAC? Why is it so like seemingly ineffective? Is it because it just hasn't been like maintained that well?
Yeah, there's no development for VAC. Well, I wouldn't say even for CS:GO, but definitely there has been no development on VAC at all. Period.
Right.
There is one guy who it's the same story as what I was talking about before. There's two guys at Valve who are qualified and willing to work on TF2, and they do so as a passion project. They have to kind of how the structure of the company works. They have to kind of decide do they work on a game like Dota? Do they kind of support what Gabe's wishes are, or do they go against them? They work on TF2. Maybe they aren't put up for their next promotion or something. I can understand how the programmers behind it they don't want to take the risk to be the trailblazers to work on TF2 if their management doesn't support them. So it extends to VAC, it extends to anything. The only reason Valve does hats is because the community will do them, and it takes seconds and it makes them millions. So
okay, now this is probably a really silly idea, but what if a lot of TF2 players just subsidize some of the developers at Valve and pay them to work on it for them?
It would work. I mean, so I think hypothetically it would work, but then the real issue becomes the legality and intellectual property involved.
Right.
I think if you were to put up an amount of money, I think Valve would just kind of outright reject it as an idea. Just as what I said before, I just don't think they want that to be the direction of their company, and they don't really care about the financial incentives behind it. So they're willing to keep TF2 afloat and cash their check, and they don't really want to do anything else. But I think in terms of if we wanted to poach someone to do pro mod development, that would be entirely possible. I think if someone made a pro mod, they could fix TF2 kind of entirely. Actually,
right.
Yeah, I think a pro mod, I'd love to hear what Daffodil thinks about a pro mod also, but I think a pro mod would be the best way for the community to continue kind of long term, because it allows us to have autonomous control of our game.
Maybe we could establish a council for that.
I think
the pro mod council.
I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on this idea because so I also play a lot of Dota, and so Dota's run kind of by one guy, Ice Frog, who kind of has overseen Dota for its entire lifetime. Even since Dota 1, he was a part of that. So he's been kind of creating the trajectory of this game for 10 years now. I think having kind of it's not as though he's without fault or anything like that. I wouldn't say that the community is generally, I mean, the community is probably generally positive about all of his changes, but it's more the idea that there's this one person who's kind of writing the story for how the game is gonna go, if that makes sense. It's really nice to have kind of one sole mind behind it, I feel. It would be nice to get kind of a similar sort of person. Obviously, it would really take, I think, an exceptional individual to do something like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone stepped forward in the next maybe 5 years to do something like that and continued to upkeep the game.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that could be worth exploring. Yeah, I don't think there'd be much harm in just trying to do something like that.
Oh yeah, definitely not. I think it would be really interesting to do our own community balance changes,
Right.
because ultimately, like, what we do could have a benefit on the game at large. Because there are obviously some weapons that are just like so terrible and unusable even in pub gameplay. Like, I'm sure that could be addressed as well.
Hmm. Okay. That's
But yeah,
definitely. Hmm.
sorry, continue. I was just
Oh no,
saying
I'm trying to
nothing.
find the train of thought I had. Oh yeah. Well, how did you end up hiring Maven for your YouTube channel? Like, what's the story there?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's the same idea that like Maven couldn't continue to work at RGL because he was doing it for free, and so he stopped. But I mean, I'm a pretty, I've got like a wide root network, and I saw his videos and I thought they were pretty good. So I was like, you know what, I want to work with this guy. Like, I think he has good vision, and I think he could help me a lot. Um,
Hmm.
and so far we have a lot in the works, but I guess stuff has started to come out now. So if you wanted to check stuff out, it's on my YouTube, Arcadia TF2.
Ubering heavy on last.
Yes.
Nice
So
though.
yeah, we're trying to make some shorts
Also,
and some educational, like, medium length videos, and then hopefully in the long term we'll make some. Or my goal personally, like, I would love to have really comprehensive video resources um out there eventually. But
hmm. So are you gonna
yeah,
become the Khan Academy of TF2?
I mean, that would be kind of the goal, because I feel like I'm just kind of in a unique crossroads of position where I'm like uniquely good enough at the game and willing to commit my money, my resources towards doing something that isn't financially viable.
Hmm.
So
Right.
like I just want to explore this because I think it's fun and I think people can benefit, and it doesn't have to be like a profitable thing ever.
Right. Like obviously you are a man who has access to many, many Robux. The Roblox entrepreneur.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand. Like, some people are just simply not as fortunate as me. Like, I'm a single guy. I live with roommates, so like my expenses are really low. I have like pretty high income. Like, not everyone is just fortunate enough to be in my position in real life. So
Right.
I I really want to do something good with what I have.
I think that's pretty noble, yeah. So how does it feel to be single-handedly responsible for killing the RGL YouTube channel?
Ha. I mean, it's not my fault. Maven was gonna quit, and
Okay.
Maven quit regardless. Actually, I reached out to him like a fair amount after, because he's pursuing a career in development as well, so in software. So he's a really smart guy.
Smart.
Yeah, I'm sure he won't want to do work with me forever, but that's okay.
Hmm.
So
Tell me more about the Arcadia Intelligence Network. Give me some details.
I mean,
Who are your agents? Do you work with Code?
agents.
Do you work for Coden?
I mean, I know Coden, but no. I mean,
Hmm.
I know Coden through the kind of software project that he's doing, but it's mostly just, I mean, stuff like this. Like, I come on here, I talk to you. Like, I'll go somewhere else and talk to whoever, and I'll share my story. I'll listen to whoever. Obviously, like, this is a show where you listen to other people, but normally I'm more of a listening type than a sharing type.
That's fair.
So I mean, I think it works pretty well. But yeah, I just love to like talk to. I mean, it's mostly just out of like my own curiosity. I like to know what's interesting. I like to learn things and see what's going on. So I just like talk to people. I ask questions. I like show genuine interest. I don't think it's very.
Hmm.
It's not much. It's not like I'm doing something nefarious or anything. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
am up to something. I am.
Yeah, your first
Yeah.
target was the RGL YouTube channel. You can't deceive me.
Yeah.
Who could your next target be?
I don't know. I can't say.
Can I
Got too far.
What if we merged our intelligence networks?
It would be good.
We established just like the TF2 secret service, the TF2 secret intelligence network.
I mean, that's like, those, I don't know how to say, but like the social aspects of TF2 are genuinely like really interesting to me. The way that like an internet community kind of forms and interacts, like just the kind of idea of that and like how that sort of works is just really intriguing to me in general, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I would agree. Sorry?
No, go ahead. That was my whole thought.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you think like these sorts of online communities get the attention care they deserve, or do you think just like the social aspects usually aren't paid enough attention to and are neglected?
I think what you said about the neglect, I think well, in general, like if you think about it, like people who like get to the, so like if you think about how RGL began, like Sigafu and his like Highlander friends were like, wouldn't it be a good idea if we made our own league that wasn't UGC because UGC sucks? Like that was their whole idea, and then they did it. Sigafu was like, yeah, I can do software, and he codes the website with no intention to ever have sixes or any other game mode, and eventually it just became the de facto North American league, like by chance, basically. So like these people who kind of rose to prominence had like no prior expertise in anything. I mean, I don't think that's unfair to say about some of the players or like admins who have been around for a long time and like been an integral part. So I think it's like people with no experience or like little experience are bound to slip up and make mistakes in terms of like how to design a community and whatnot. So
right, okay, that's fair. Yeah,
I mean it's a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I think it's hard to like single-handedly sort of say like somebody did this on purpose and it was bad. More like things sort of grew and evolved over time, and like people are just kind of individually doing their best, and sometimes like people's best, I mean, isn't as good as like a professional standard, for example, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's fair. Do you have any other things you want to like talk about or like bring up that have been brought up already? I'm mostly done when it comes to the questions. Like I don't really have any more left besides the ending ones.
Just look at my notes.
Wait, you got notes as well? What the fuck?
Well, I mean, obviously, like, okay, so when you told me about this, so I was like, okay, I need some, like, purpose. I'm just a very purpose-driven guy, so I was like, I need, like, an idea for why am I doing this? Why would I even want to do this? As someone who, like, isn't that talkative or, like, social. I mean, like, after this is the most talking I've done all day. So, like, I'm gonna have to drink a glass of water after this and, like, take a nap. But yeah, I just I hoped that, like, if people liked what I had to say, they could go to my YouTube or my Twitch and, like, enjoy more. Or, like, vice versa, if there was someone in the community who, like, watched this and is, like, a younger kid and, like, in the beginning of their career, I want to talk about this really fast, I guess, to wrap things up, is, like, I am not ashamed to say that, like, I took a long break from 2017 to, like, 2021. So at least, like, 4 years of not playing the game outside of, like, a couple of pubs. I mean, if you like go back and look at my logs, it's just like empty for. I've got like 2015 logs, and then I've got like 2021 logs, and there's like not much in between. Okay. So I think like if there's someone watching who like has bad community rep or something, and is like, really just into the game and like doesn't have a good social life in TF or in real life or something, like. I would say that like life can change really fast, and you can do like a lot of things in real life that just have like, even if you're a terrible TF2 player, you can quit and never come back, and that's okay. Or like you can quit and come back after a long time, and that's also okay. Yeah, I mean that's obviously like pretty specific. If I don't know, if someone kind of feels like my situation before, or like feels like they're in that situation, like it's totally good to like focus on real life and take some time away from the game, and then come back later when you're in a better state. So hopefully that's a good way to end.
I'd agree, yeah. Also, this is just a side note, but my crosshair changed after loading your demos, even after I closed the game, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
My game is very powerful. I'm a programmer, and like sometimes I just have no understanding of like when I type in a command, will it permanently affect my game, or like I don't know. There's like 1,000 different files in my config. Like I don't get it.
Did you infect my game? Like, I genuinely don't know.
I don't know. I swear to God, my commands have more power or something. Like, if I type in like CL_crosshair, I don't know, make it like red, like everyone's crosshair becomes red. I don't know.
Well, right now it's a small yellow crosshair.
Oh, great. Oh, like the medic one? Nice.
I guess so? Like, I genuinely don't understand. Like, I just had a small teal dot before. I had it for years, and after, like, loading those demos, it just changed. Honestly,
gotta be careful.
It seems much better for gameplay than the small teal dot, though it has improved my DM drastically. So, thank you. I guess you gave me the mega
no
cheats.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay. Are there any people, like, you want to shout out? Anything like
that? Oh, yeah. Big shout out to Necro, Scout teammate. Big shout out to Q, Brody, all the software guys who I talked about but didn't name. I'm very thankful for all of you, and really thankful to RGL and all the admins, especially like Reno and Exa. They do a great job, and they deserve to be paid. That's my stance. Yeah, thanks to all those guys, and to you too.
Thank you.
Oh, shout out to Maven, because he shouted me out. Obviously, could have shouted him out.
Yes. It's happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the platform.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think you had some really interesting things to talk about, just like RGL from your perspective. Like, definitely important to get it out there, yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
Any community initiatives besides your own that you think are, like, interesting that you want to talk about?
No, that's all for me.
Okay. I think I will go and end the recording then, yeah?
Perfect.